Hello all, a very good evening. I'm Dr. Subhashti, a consultant obstetrician at Fernandez Hospital. I welcome you all to this warm gathering. This is our second episode of Trailblazers, Charting Paths, Inspiring Destinies. Today, our esteemed guest is Payal Kapoor, a disability consultant and a motivational speaker. She was rendered completely blind and partially deaf in her early 20s because of her irreversible medical incident. Ms. Payal has experienced incomparable loss and has emerged triumphant from the challenges she has faced. A culinary school graduate with a planned career in hospitality management, she has had to pivot many times and reinvent herself in a world that is less than inclusive for persons with disabilities. Wearing many hats, Payal has made a trip back into the hotel industry, worked as a teacher and mentor after being rehabilitated herself, is perhaps the only known certified CPR and first aid service provider with vision impairment. Payal is a passionate diversity advocate and a disability strategist. Payal conducts several sensitization and awareness workshops under 4 core headings, namely allyship, which with the goal of promoting equitable and inclusive workplaces where everyone, including persons with disabilities, can thrive. ACT, which covers best practices which can create a ripple effect and accelerate positive change. Advocate and audit, she partners with government and non-government entities to conduct spot audits of physical spaces to ensure compilation with guidelines laid out in the Rights of Persons of Disability Act 2016. And adapt via her unique award-winning podcast Rasoi Ke Rahasya on YouTube, which has enabled scores of visibly impaired persons to push their boundaries of exploration into kitchens, safety, and accessibly. A TEDx speaker and on panels of many discussions such as the Indian Women Network and amongst many others, she has been recognized for her contribution in accelerating the changing ecosystem. Her informational talks have impacted listeners both from the community of disabled and the non-disabled alike, empowering them to live life to the fullest. Thank you, Payal, for accepting our invitation, and the platform is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Subhashni, for the warm welcome. It's wonderful to be here in the midst of so many, I assume, medical practitioners and otherwise, because somehow this space is more important to create awareness than any other. So to begin, I'm going to take you back a little bit before we speak about my life. Let's talk numbers, because at the end of the day, that is what matters, because that is what, most change and most policies are eventually going to be based upon. As per the recent WHO figures, a staggering 16% of the world's population has some form of disability. Disability could be anything, little more, face, eyes, nose, wherever, whatever, 16%. Just imagine that. And we have people who are growing older, the life expectancy is increasing, with so many medical, transformations and changes and discoveries taking place. So we're living in a world where awareness needs to be the key. People need to know who they're dealing with and how. All of our families have elderly people or little children or people like me or anybody who can be struck down by any disability at any point in time. What do we need to do? We need to be prepared. When I say prepared, there is no roadmap. We can't really say what's going to happen. But just the fact that we know about something, some disability, about how lives of other people are, it can make a difference. Now, another thing that I would like to share with you is the appellate law of our land where disability is concerned is called the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Now, this is the framework in which the entire spectrum of do's and don'ts and law and changes, rules, everything appears in this. It's a very composite kind of a document which came to us after 1995. Our last disability law was as old as 1995. Now here, what is changed here is the entire way the world looks at disability. What is disability? I'm going to share with you the basic definition of how society views people with disabilities and how people with disabilities view themselves, which is enshrined in this law. Most people in general assume a person with disability is somebody who is disabled, as in has some sense, some limb, something affected, but at the same time also assume that the capability and adaptability of said person is not the same. The law begs to differ. The law says people with disabilities are only people who have a physical impairment. You as medical practitioners, I suppose, would also look at it as a physical impairment. But what beyond that? Beyond that lies a fact that our physical impairment does not stop us from being able to perform like most non-disabled people. What is different is the fact that our disability is stopped or curtailed by barriers. What barriers are these? They could be infrastructure, they could be digital, they could be mental, emotional, perception, it could be anything. So how you view a person with disability is very different from how I view myself. Because if you look at it, I'm sitting here with you today on the same platform as every other non-disabled person is, having a conversation with you. Had you not known I was disabled, you wouldn't know I was disabled. So here we are on the level playing field. What is important is not simply equality. What is important is equity. Equality is going to create a level playing field. Everyone is equal. But what is equity? Equity is to bring everybody on the level playing field, give them the same space. Give us the same space to be able to do things and allow us to be able to participate completely in all that everyone else is doing. So this is what is the difference in how you perceive a person with disability and how I perceive myself. Now to take you down to my life story. So this is my very favorite quote, and I think John Lennon, when he wrote this quote, had written it with me in mind many, many moons ago. Life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. A lot of you must have heard this very, very famous quote. My life is exactly like that. I was not even 22 years old. I'm a hotel management graduate with 2 years into the hotel industry, working, loving life, living it up, and looking to the future. When I fell ill, at that point, we didn't know what was happening. And in no time at all, I was left totally blind, totally deaf, with my other senses also not working, because I went blind and I lost my sense of taste and smell. Slowly, I lost my hearing, my sense of touch. I lost everything. From being a happy girl looking ahead in life and looking at so many things, I ended up almost a vegetable with absolutely no idea of what had hit me from where. It has taken almost 30 years of living in blindness to actually realize what happened to me was called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Now, at that point, we didn't know. Yes, I think my discharge summary did say something like that, but there was nobody to explain to us what IH was all about. it is in recent years, thanks to advocacy, thanks to communication, thanks to so much opening up in the world in terms of sharing information and availability of information and advocacy groups, that I know that I fell ill, and that is what happened to me, and that is what caused all the damage and the havoc in my life. It took me 6 long years to be able to come to terms with the fact that I was going to be living the life of a disabled person. The acceptance was very, very difficult. The denial, to think that I was looking ahead at a career and, I was looking at a potential of being the general manager of a 5-star hotel somewhere in my life and things. And here I was, who couldn't see, who couldn't hear, who could barely get up, who could do nothing. That is the point at which I thought that life was actually over. But as much as we say life is over, and you wish that life is over, but life is never really over until it's actually over. I slipped, hit rock bottom, and depression, everything. I mean, the whole spectrum of emotions was in place. And I didn't want to do anything with my life. It was my mother who actually pushed me and actually helped me find myself again. And this was, over 31 years ago. Now, in this entire story, what stands out is the fact that we don't realize that apart from our minds and our bodies, there is something that is larger than all of us that resides within us that we don't always see. That's the human spirit. I always believe that the human spirit is this small little spark within all of us that stays and is latent until it is ignited. And it gets ignited the minute you think you're ready to give up. That spirit ignites itself, becomes into a flame, large, burns bright, and takes you with it to show you the path, to show you the fact that there is indeed a light at the end of that very, very dark tunnel. That's where my life went. After 6 years of staying in denial and having fortunately recovered partial hearing, I'm still totally blind. I have partial hearing. My sense of taste and smell recovered over a period of time, thanks to whatever miracle it was. But, I was able to smell again. I was able to hear little bits and pieces, which over a period of time became better. And I was able to sense the world around me. Once that happened, my mother swung into action, and she decided that it was time we started moving on with life and doing things that needed to be done. So she helped me move around things, do things around the house, which I used to always do. I was a hotelier and somebody who loved her kitchen, loved cooking. So she actually pinpointed the areas of interest to see where I could actually, find that spark to ignite it. And she put me into the kitchen, made me do things, gave me a bunch of vegetables and said, hey, you don't need to see to actually cut vegetables. Start cutting vegetables. And I realized that really, you need to see. How many of us really need to see when we're cutting vegetables? She taught me how to knit. It was something she did very passionately. After losing my eyesight, she taught me how to knit. I did all the things I had no time to do while I was a sighted person living my life the way I wanted to. Now, when it came to I was print disabled. I was somebody who, despite being educated and literate, was illiterate. I couldn't read, I couldn't write because I couldn't see. I couldn't hear completely. So there was a whole lot of relearning that needed to be done. Life is all about this. You think you stop, but you really don't stop because you study further, there's something new, you research further, there's something new happening. There's that constant desire to know more. There's that constant curiosity to grow. I had no such curiosity, let me tell you. I had absolutely no curiosity because life for me was simply dark and black and dismal and horrible, and there was no reason why I should have even been alive. But my mother didn't look at it like that. She said, nothing doing. And then, you reach a point, if you're upset, if you're sad, you reach a point where you say, oh God, now what can I do? So I reached that point where I said, okay, now I'm fed up of being sad. I'm absolutely tired of being miserable. Let me do something about it. So I put myself into rehabilitation. When I put myself into rehabilitation is where my life totally opened up. I realized that there was so much potential. There was so much available, so much opportunity, so many possibilities out there. Only if one opens their mind to those possibilities and is ready to accept the change. Suddenly, I felt powerful because I had started to learn how to read and write Braille. Believe me, that journey, if you were to ask my teacher and my mentor, who was also a blind man, how I went through it, he laughed because he bullied me into doing it. I didn't want to do it because it was tough, it was difficult. My sense of touch was still not very good. But he said, oh, never mind. Right hand, Patty, no problem. Use left hand. I can't use left hand to read. He said, who says no? I learned how to use my left hand to be able to read Braille. I started using my left hand more and more because my right hand, even today, is slightly numb. I can't totally feel it, but I'm a completely independent person who not only lives her own life, but takes care of other people as well. I reached that point from zero. The graph was slowly moving upwards. I realized that not being able to see was an interesting thing because the minute power goes off in the house, everybody is running helter-skelter, wondering, where is the light? Where is the switch? Where is the candle? Where is the whatever? I'm walking around very happy. Telling people, hey, what are you worrying about? Just sit around. Let me get it for you. Walk around, get it. Can't find this in the cupboard. Where is this? Can't find this in the cupboard. You just move people, push them away and say, don't be a bore. You're wasting time. Let me look for it for you. Check, pick it, give it to them. So there's a very interesting thing that happened not so long ago. Somebody brought me a full big box full of candy, assorted candy. Now, I'm not such a sweet, I don't have such a sweet tooth. My father has a cute sweet tooth. He wanted a particular kind, which he went and he looked for and he couldn't find it. And he came back and he told me, you finished all of them. I said, of course not. I'm not the one that eats it. You finished all of them. He said, no, I didn't eat it. I said, so then it's there. He said, no, it's not there. I've looked everywhere. I can't find it. I said, okay, hang on. I took the box. I put my hand in. I rifled around, pulled a whole bunch of the candy he was looking for and put it in his hand. And he's looking at it. Where was this? I said, exactly where you didn't see it. So I have this constant battle every day with help at home, with people who tell me they can't find something, who tell me, you're a psycho. Look at you, man. It's very difficult to work around you. Why? Because I'm touching surfaces. I'm working in the kitchen and I'm very, very particular about how I work in the kitchen, the cleanliness and those kind of things. So they tell me you're really very difficult to work because what happens is my hand is touching something. People who are seeing it are not seeing it. So I said, if only you people decided to do something more with your hands and with your eyes rather than simply superficially looking at something, you'll probably be able to do a lot more. So this was one phase where my mother was my backbone and I lost my mother a month ago. And I think it is only, I will probably never, ever, ever forget the amount she empowered me as an individual. And she will always, everything that she's done will always stay with me. And I hope that I'm going to be able to pay it forward in some way or the other. So this was empowering myself at home. I had friends who were ridden out in, first visits, lots of firsts over there, because first ride on a friend's bike who had studied with me and we'd gone to college. Now getting onto that same bike without being able to see was like awful. It was like, no, I can't see. How can I sit on the bike? Why can't you? What's in sitting on the bike? No, but what if I fall off? How can you fall off? She said. So I sat and, has anybody tried it? I think you should. Sit behind somebody, shut your eyes, and just experience the world outside. Things whizzing past you in full speed, horns honking, and people shouting, and endless noise. You feel like you're in this. The only analogy I can figure out to you, I can think of, is being thrown into the washing machine on a spin cycle. That's exactly how. You just keep going round and round and round, and you just can't do. And imagine me, who's partially deaf, is saying that. So for all you hearing people, you must please, you must try it and then tell me how you feel about this entire experience. Going to a restaurant for the first time, full foodie, love my food. Going to a restaurant for the first time, no, I don't want to go. Why don't you want to go? My food, how will I eat? It'll get stuck somewhere else. It'll go somewhere else. How can it go anywhere else? You're going to pick your hand and take it to your mouth, aren't you? No, what if I take it to my nose? I look so stupid. Chinese restaurant, Hyderabad's very famous chungwa. I've never forgotten it. I went there so worried. Why? Because I had to mix noodles on my plate with some gravy. And then I'm worried that, I'm going to be flinging noodles all over the place. And such fear of not being able to see. Close your eyes, put your foot forward and see what it feels like. In one of my sessions with a corporate company, I remember I had blindfolded people, and later when I was getting feedback from them, I asked them, what did it feel like? What was the one thing that made you afraid? They said of putting the next step and not knowing where you were going. Whether you were going to fall, you're going to sink, you're going to, or are you going to actually find firm ground under you? It's that frightening. But it's frightening only until you've figured it's not that frightening. Rehabilitation taught me that. It taught me how to own my disability. It made me a proud disabled person, because my identity so far had that been of a sighted person, of a young girl who was an aspiring hotelier. Today, the world saw me as a poor blind girl. Poor thing. She had such a good life there for herself. Look at her now. That was the perception. What I had to rise above was this ableist understanding of me as a disabled person. I don't blame anybody for feeling that way, because when you don't know better, that's generally how everybody thinks. Because after all, I was the person who had to learn how to apply toothpaste on a toothbrush all over again. Close your eyes, apply toothpaste on your tooth. These are all exercises for all you there. Exercises. Shut eyes, try and apply toothpaste to your toothbrush. Find clothes for yourself. Put on the tap or the shower and stand under the shower and not jump around the bath. These are all little things that we think are very little but are not so little until they actually stop being little. I learned how to walk, to use my cane, the white cane, which took me a long time to actually accept, because as a blind person, my vanity was very, very badly impacted. I was somebody who was used to being all out there and a fancy young girl. Suddenly you had a white cane in your hand and you were tapping around and looking around and things like that. And, it wasn't so fancy after all. And it took me a long time. Today, it's a badge of honor. It's something that I don't leave the house without. I learned how to do things around the house safely, securely, which today I have been able to give back to hundreds of visually impaired people who I've taught how to cook, how to work around their homes, how to do things safely, how to manage their lives well and effectively and feel good about it. Because at the end of the day, we are hardest on our own selves. Our expectations are heaviest on our own, because we're all used to doing things a certain way. And when you can't do things that way, we always end up wondering what we did wrong. So all of these things actually were the building blocks of who I am today. One by one, things started happening. Why? Because I had opened my mind to possibilities. I had decided I was going to turn my adversity and embrace all the opportunities that were coming my way. Life is big. Life is beautiful. Not always, but even if it isn't, it is. You can either take it, run with it, or you can sit by and let it pass. But move you have, however you decide. Now, all this sounds very good and very great, that I was so fabulous and I did so many fabulous things. Now, let me tell you some not so fabulous things. I am this person who sits on the side and looks for a very long time before I take the first step. Not because I was blind, but just as a person. And that saw me taking things very, very slow. So there was, now what was it? Braille, okay, reading, writing, Braille is over. It's fabulous. I can read and write again. But Braille is not practical. Braille is not something, Braille material is not available for all of us to read, all of us to do. And I was a voracious reader. I always had a book with me, always had something to read. Now to sit and read a Braille book, a 100-page book in print is at least a 300-page book in Braille. Bulky, large, and not always very cumbersome. But we were slowly entering, it was the 90s, early 90s, we were entering into this world of technology, which in India had still to come. But since I was working with this organization where, by the way, the organization where I was rehabilitated also employed me. So I was suddenly not just a person who was rehabilitated by the organization, but I was also a person who was hired by the same organization to do all the things I was so hesitant to do, all the things that took me 6 years to do. I was sitting there, I was a mentor, I was a teacher, doing what? Teaching other people Braille, laughing at them when they cried. Well, life comes full circle. See, what goes around comes around. Somebody laughed at me, I laughed back at somebody else. But I was able to do so much with the community. I was able to mentor girls. I was able to talk to them. I was able to help them find their sense of self, their self-worth. It was the most rewarding 7 years I spent. And over there, I learned how to use special computer. They were called Braille notes. So essentially, the input was in Braille and the sound, there was a sound output, which was in, there was sound, okay, digital sound. So I loved it. I carried it all over the place and showed off to everybody how equipped I was. But slowly, Windows was coming in and things were getting more and more, difficult to do on just the Braille note. There was time then, if you know, we use something called screen readers. We use something called assistive technology, which helps us navigate our technology around. So if I'm sitting with you, talking with you just now, I have used my own laptop. I have used my own technology to be able to communicate with you, to log into this webinar and to be able to communicate with you. Assistive technology is available on the phone. It's available on the laptops. If people using Windows, no, there's Narrator. Narrator is just one of them. We use a third-party software. Your phones, your mobile phones have speech as well on your accessibility under an accessibility menu. You will find on Android phones, you'll find something called TalkBack, and on iOS, you'll find something called VoiceOver. So it's magical. There was this whole world that was opening up for me. And here I was sitting on the side and saying, oh God, I'll have to learn typing on this full laptop. Imagine for somebody who was used to using keys to do everything. I was looking at a full QWERTY keyboard and to do all of that. So, but I pushed myself and I got pushed a little bit as well, because if I had to become part of the mainstream, I had to do this. I had to move on. I had to upskill. I had to become part of the change. And what did that mean? That meant I was reinventing myself all the time. Every time I thought that I had reached one part, which I thought that, okay, now this is it. I don't need to do anymore. Life came up and said, hey, why are you sitting? You can't sit. There's more to do. I got pushed to doing more. My foray back into the hotel industry needed me to use a regular laptop. Now, to use the regular laptop, I went to learn how to type without being able to see. I went to learn how to be able to use the internet, how to be able to use all the other technology that was available, how to use MS Office, Excel sheets, all of that. And there I was, job ready at a hotel, a new hotel. And I worked there. I thought, so when my boss looked at it, he said, how will you work? I said, well, I'll show you how I work. Then he looked at it and he said, okay, you figure your own way out here. I said, fine, I'll do that. I figured my own way out over there. And ultimately, he said this would be for 3 months because we're a new hotel. We'll see whatever. That 3 months ended up being a 12-year stint with the hotel. I went from being an ordinary telecaller to becoming part of a sales team, to become part of the system. I did training. I did quality, I did lots of sales and all of that. And, it was amazing to see when you push boundaries where all you can go. And I just had this entire need to keep going on. Suddenly I realized that, I had so much more in me than I thought I did. Now, the hotel's 12 years, and while I was in the hotel industry, I got fidgety. I got a little restless, say, okay, I'm doing the same thing and again and again. And there are limitations to how much you can do in the hotel industry. So as a person with disability, at least when I was there, what else to do? So that's when my world opened up into this entire space of advocacy, of inclusion, of understanding, because at that point, this whole space of diversity and inclusion was opening up. The recognition of diversity was taking up a new form. People were actually beginning to recognize that there was more to sympathy. There was more to simply say, he's blind, he's so talented, and you're such an inspiration. There was, yes, I'm an inspiration, but I'm an inspiration not to yourself. I'm not to you. I'm an inspiration to myself because I'm teaching myself how to reinvent myself. I'm inspiring myself to be a bigger person. And if I'm able to inspire you in that process, that's fabulous. But I'm not living my life for others. I'm not living my life to inspire you. That was an understanding that was slowly coming up. The world was opening up. The world of internet was opening up. The WWW had come in and it was creating a splash. We were seeing more and more things happening. So I then took to writing. I have a small blog called Payal Kapoor on WordPress, where I've written about my experiences of living life with disability. Here again, there are a lot of learning experiences that happen because in a world that is not in general, by nature, equitable, in a world that is not all accepting, there is always a fight. And because that if we don't fight, there's no change. And that is what I was doing. I had faced a lot of discrimination. I had faced a lot of unconscious biases. Let me give you an example of an unconscious bias that I faced in my, it was a rude shock because it gave us a shock to me. It was not something I'd ever experienced. In the hotel where I was working as a salesperson, I was, my first client who came into the hotel was somebody who was going to be staying for 3 months, and I was thrilled because it was my first actual sale, and it was a very prestigious client and things like that. And I was very excited, and I said, okay, when this person checks in, I'm going to go and meet him and things like that. So the person checked in, and he had many conversations with me to firm up his plans and all the things that he needed done and so on and so forth. They came for him to check in, and I told the reception to let me know when he checks in. I had organized a drinks and dinner meeting with him in the evening. So he came, and I walked out with my boss to meet him. We walked out, and I introduced myself, and I put my hand out, and I shook his hand. So here, like, in case I'm not looking into everybody's faces and you can only see my nose or mouth or something similar must have happened with him. I must have somewhere lost eye contact, and he stopped because I think he figured that there was something that was not right about me. So he started hoeing and humming, and I told him, that we'd have a drinking dinner, and there was an invite for him in his room and the restaurant and so on and so forth. He looked at me, and he actually stopped talking, and he started talking to my boss. I'm standing right there. I'm his account manager, and he's talking to my boss. So he must have asked something. So my boss nudged me. I said, I'm blind, and I'm your account manager. So he stopped talking. No communication after that. He went up to his room. I said, thank you, because he obviously got uncomfortable. He went up to his room. And when I called him confirming the dinner meeting, he said, no, I have something else that's come up. I cannot come. I was so blown because I couldn't believe there was somebody who was actually doing something like that. And I didn't know that this happened. Today, in my world of advocacy, I know that's an unconscious bias. Those are all myths that we work at busting. We have to understand that there are people that live differently, that are different people, that have so much happening in their lives, that has nothing. It takes me back to the beginning of my talk when I've told you about the differences of how people with disabilities perceive themselves and how society at large perceives people with disabilities. For another anecdote, this is a funny one. At the restaurant, I had another client. This time we didn't tell him anything. We were playing safe. So I invited him to lunch. He came to lunch, and I was always accompanied by another person. And we went to the restaurant, and all the restaurant staff know, and everybody knows. So I shook hands, and he obviously was not that attentive or whatever. He came, he sat down, we started eating. And then somewhere he also figured, I think somewhere in the conversation, he figured that I couldn't see and that I was doing something different. And I smiled at it, told him, I said, yes, yeah, I know. I'm part of the team, but yes, I don't see, and, I'm blind and whatever. Since from then, my colleague was telling me, he said, he sat and he looked at your face. The server came, he came to serve me. So for your information, when a blind person is served food on the plate, we use the reference of the clock. So let's say my salad is at 12 o'clock, right on the top of the plate. My curry is at 3 o'clock. My roti or rice is at 6 o'clock. And my dal or whatever else, or chicken or whatever it is at 9 o'clock. So we use that reference. It's very easy to find. So this guy came and he served me food like that. And this gentleman only looked. Then after that, I started eating. And I ate and we had a conversation. He didn't, to his credit, he didn't say anything and whatever. And I ate and we finished and whatever came back. And the minute we entered the elevator, my colleague burst into laughter. I said, wow, what happened? He said, you had to see him. All he did, before he was eating his food, he was looking at your hand, picking up the food, the fork or the spoon, moving to your mouth, coming back down, going back to your mouth, your hand picking up the glass. He was concerned where, my food will be shoved in my nose, or probably I put it into my ears or something like that. So, I mean, these are experiences that make being blind completely worthwhile. I'm somebody who loves, I'm your person. You want me to, bust a myth? I'm your person. So slowly, over a period of time, social identity. So my identity as a social identity, my identity became that of a disabled person. It was different that I was proud of the identity. I had had time enough to grow into myself, to learn that there was so much power in all that I had achieved so far. And I had stopped looking back at what I hadn't done and started looking ahead at all that I had done and all that I had still to do. My mind was open. My life was complete. And there were so many experiences. Just your sensory experiences are so fabulous. Everything you enjoy, everything you want to actually savor. If you notice, you will shut your eyes and take a deep breath. You're outside, you're smelling something, whether it's nice or bad or good or bad or ugly, you're always shutting your eyes before you can actually fully get a sense of what you're doing. So also, then came the world of technology as it went on, apps, Uber, Google Maps, everything. So today, I'm a completely independent person. I run a house on my own. I went from somebody who was a caregiver, who was a recipient of care from my parents, to somebody who's today a caregiver. I have taken care of my mother single-handedly as a blind person and was able to give her all that she had given me while she was taking care of me. I now take care of my father who's with me, and I'm able to do everything that is needed for me. It's a matter of great pride. It's a privilege. It's something that I don't think anybody realizes, that, you know, the limitations that you place on your own self, on your capabilities, are all that are just perceptions. It's completely how you see yourself. The minute you start seeing yourself as more than your limitations, your life opens up for you. I have done so much. Like, for instance, when I finished my hotel job after 12 years, the pandemic opened up a whole new era for me. Because here I was, sitting at the same place where I'm sitting and speaking with you today. This is my work desk. I work from here. I had worked here for many years. People around me were getting restless. People around were saying we're boxed in and we're feeling, you know, completely suffocated. We're this, we're that. Who was having the last laugh? Me. I'm sitting at the same desk, writing. I was doing work. I was doing lots of work because everything moved online. Who were they talking to? Me. Who did they want to do things? Me. Who was happy? Me again. So it was fabulous, you know. So again, an example of how in adversity there is so much opportunity. One of my biggest accomplishments came out of this unhappy phase that humanity faced. My podcast, Sens-it-Eyes, was something that was born at this time. Everybody went into lockdown. Blind people suddenly stuck at home with no cooks, no tiffin walas, no tapas, no canteens, nothing. With some equipment, some food, something left over, how to cook, what to cook. I did webinars. I was teaching them what they could do. Then we started talking about, why don't you create some information, voice notes. So on a WhatsApp group, I started creating voice notes. Somebody else said, ma'am, this is so much information. Why don't we archive this information? 2 people came down. They said, okay, let's go. Let's archive it. Where can we archive it? I said, listen, I can create content. Don't ask me to do any more technology than I absolutely have to. I'll have PTSD. Don't make me do that. So there was some other bunch of young people, enthusiastic young techies, blind techies, who picked up and created the YouTube channel, Sens-it-Eyes. I won an award for the most accessible content that was created. It was easy. It was simple. It's there for anybody who's entering the kitchen for the first time. It's detailed. It's assured to help you do things with 4 senses. You live life. And with 4 senses, I can assure any of you that you will be able to work in your kitchen without being able to see. So this has been such a fabulous journey. It's not been without hurdles. It's been with a lot of hurdles. I quit my job. I had a friend who told me, why don't you come and work with me? I have medical equipment. I said, don't know the M of medical equipment. No problem. I'll teach you. Okay. I went there, started learning about defibrillators, started learning about compressions, started learning about evacuation equipment and all of that. And that's how I went to an AHA community camp to do my training for to be a CPR and first aid service provider. I did all of that. And even then, the gentleman looked at me and said, will you be able to do it, ma'am? But you can't see. I said, doctor, do you need to see or do you need to use your hands to do compression? What do you need? You need strength in my shoulders and you need me to find the spot where I need to compress. I can assure you I can find the spot and compress. I did that. I passed my exam. What is it? It's tactile. It's using your hands. It's using your energy. It's using your mind. So there was so much that I was able to learn and be part of the change. And I continue to do so. Hopefully, I will keep on doing so. This is my journey. How can you be part of this journey? How can you be part of this change, which is an ongoing process, which is something that will never stop? Because as you all know, change is the only constant. You would have heard this word ally being passed around, tossed around all over the place. Now, at places such as mine, what happened was when I was in hospital, I spent 6 years in denial. Why? Because I didn't have a guiding hand to show me the way. We did have a robust enough system in the hospitals to help hold a person's hand. My family, who knows what going blind is about? None of us do. Who knows what rehabilitation is about and where should we take the first step and how? I spent 6 years doing nothing on the outside of the house. It is easier if we have a system in place where as soon as a person is either disabled or is going to be disabled or anything, if there is a support system that helps us in being able to understand our situation better. My own experience, my parents didn't want the doctors to even tell me what was happening to me. Of course, I couldn't hear very clearly, but they were afraid that I would probably shrivel up and die. Maybe I would have. But the only people who insisted on my parents telling me, and they said she's over 21, she has a right to know, were the doctors at the Flying Hospital, Project Orbis. They happened to be staying at the hotel where I was working. And the gentleman, when we went and met them, they said, she has a right to know. She has to know what's happening to her. He told me whatever I could understand, because my parents were writing on my palm, using their finger as a chalk, because I couldn't hear. And he was the one who taught my parents how to guide me, how to help me walk. So far, nobody knows. Had this been done day one, I would have started walking independently day one. So this is a very, very important thing. We need more support. We need at the levels of the hospital, at the levels of, the point of contact is where the change needs to take place. That's where allies come into being. Support comes into being. I read a very interesting acronym for the word ally itself, which is from the Center for Disease Control in the United States. It's very simple. The A is saying acknowledge that people are different, acknowledge that there are differences in their experiences and in their abilities, and learn about all kinds of disabilities, many disability types. Learn about them. The second L is leverage your influence to help moving ahead, create accessible spaces, and also build change. Y is yield the flow. Yield the flow to people with disabilities to identify and make necessary changes to barriers. Now, these are very, very important. This is simple, but extremely important because most people tend to think that people with disabilities are not only disabled, but don't have abilities to be cognitive and to be able to understand what's happening to them. That's totally wrong. What is extremely important is to involve us in your decisions, in what is being done to us, whether it is hospitals, whether it is a medical procedure. Most often you'll find people talking to the person who accompanies the person with disability. Please don't do that. Talk to them, yes, because they are our support system, but also talk to the person with disability. Remember, he's a person first and a disabled later. Respect, agency, very, very important. Don't push your way into our lives just because you think you want us to do something a certain way, or you think you can think for us. No, you can't think for us. We're thinking people. Ask us what we want. Ask us what we would like to do. It is so, so important to understand that you take away from us our sense of self if you don't allow us that change. So please, please, please understand that respecting agency along with the right amount of information and your desire to be part of a change is what will make you an ally. Always. We can do with allies. We can always do with more and more people in our lives who create a support system for us to be able to grow, to thrive, and to become that very, very necessary inclusive society that we need. So I'm going to now leave you to see this little video clip, which is very interesting.
Hello, and what's your name?
Hello, my name is Lee, and, for obvious reasons, I'm also known as the Lost Voice Guy.
Okay, and how long have you lost your voice?
I just knew you were going to ask something that I hadn't thought about beforehand. So please excuse the awkward silence while I type out my answer. I've been speechless for 37 years.
Wow. Tell me why you decided to enter the show this year?
I think I entered Britain's Got Talent for the same reason everyone does. To meet Ant and Dec.
This is all going so well up until that point. The stage, Lee, is yours.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you may be able to tell, I'm a struggling stand-up comedian who also struggles to stand up. To be honest, I'm not sure how good I am. I'll leave that for you to decide. But, just so you know, if you don't laugh at the disabled guy, you are going to hell. When I realized I'd never be able to talk again, I was speechless. I have lived in Newcastle all my life.
Yes!
But for some reason, I still haven't picked up the accent. I can see that some of you are trying to figure out where you know me from. Maybe it would help if I started saying phrases such as, the next train to arrive on platform 4 is the 12:52 service to London King's Cross. And, from my time at the post office, please go to cashier number 8. I got the train here today. I always like to sit in those seats for disabled people. I was about halfway here when another disabled person got on and asked me to move. I didn't realize I'd be playing disabled top trumps when I got on, or I would have dressed more special. Needless to say, I didn't give up my seat. Who cares if he was both blind and deaf? I was there first. It was very awkward. He couldn't see that I was still there. And I couldn't tell him I wasn't moving because I can't speak. Before I leave you, I have one more thing to say. I hate that we have so many politically correct words to describe disabled people now. It's all special needs. Special schools, Special Olympics. I don't know what is so special about me. That is why it always alarms me when I hear about special forces going to war. You've been a fantastic audience. Goodbye.
That's what it's all about. We are not special. We are not differently abled. We are not specially abled. We are not divyang. We are not, divine. We are nothing. We are just people who have a disability.
Thank you. Thank you, Payal. That was humorous and we kept laughing at all your statements. Thank you so much for speaking to us.